The 2026 F1 season kicks off in barely 2 weeks, but instead of celebrating, Aston Martin is in absolute crisis mode. Reports from Bahrain suggest Red Bull has successfully engineered a legal catastrophe that has left Lawrence Stroll's super team paralyzed. To understand why the paddock is currently on fire, we have to look at the timeline. It is February 18, 2026, a date confirmed by Formula One's official schedule. Pre-season testing is underway in Bahrain, as detailed by Bahrain Prop, and the new era of Formula One has arrived. For the last 2 years, the narrative was simple. Lawrence Stroll was building a juggernaut. He signed Adrian Newey, the greatest designer in history. He signed Enrico Cardile from Ferrari, a move highlighted by the BBC. He brought in Andy Cowell, the man behind Mercedes' dominant engines. And he secured the exclusive Honda Works partnership, reported extensively by News. On paper, this was the team that would end the Red Bull dynasty. But the reality on the track at Sakir today tells a much darker story. The AMR 26, the car that was supposed to challenge Max Verstappen, is reportedly struggling to even match the midfield pace. Lance Stroll was heard on the radio complaining about a massive deficit, and Fernando Alonso's body language in the garage looks absolutely lethal. The reason for this disaster isn't just bad engineering. It is a strategic masterstroke initiated by Red Bull's former leadership under Christian Horner. By enforcing ironclad gardening leave periods and legally blocking the transfer of key personnel until the very last second, Red Bull ensured that Aston Martin's dream team didn't actually start working together until it was far too late. Stroll paid for the best minds in the sport, but Red Bull made sure they spent the critical development phase of the 2026 regulations sitting at home, unable to draw a single line of code. The panic at Aston Martin isn't just about being a little slow. The numbers coming out of Bahrain are terrifying. During the early runs this week, the AMR 26 was clocking lap times that insiders claim are multiple seconds off the leading pace. The new 2026 regulations, which mandate active aerodynamics and a 50-50 split between electric and combustion power, required a completely integrated design philosophy. But because the car is behaving so unpredictably, the team can't even dial in the setup. Lance Stroll's comments earlier this week mentioned a gap of 4.5 seconds compared to the top teams. That is an eternity in Formula One. It suggests that the correlation between the wind tunnel and the track is broken. When you have a correlation issue in February of a new regulation cycle, your season is effectively over before the first lights go out in Melbourne. The car looks heavy, the active aero wings seem to be stalling at the wrong moments, and the balance shifts wildly through the corners. It is the classic sign of a car designed by committee rather than a cohesive vision. This chaos leads directly back to Red Bull's front office. When Adrian Newey announced his departure from Milton Keynes, Lawrence Stroll celebrated it as the coup of the century, as announced on Aston Martin FF1. But Christian Horner played the long game. He held Newey to a strict contract that kept him on gardening leave until March 1st, 2025. That date sounded fine at the time, but in reality, it was a death sentence for the 2026 car. A Formula One car for a major regulation change takes 18 months to develop properly. Although Newey arrived at Silverstone last March, he revealed that he actually conceived the AMR 26's design philosophy while on gardening leave. The team adopted his vision, but the late start meant they began wind tunnel testing months behind their rivals. Newey designed the concept, but the delay has left them playing a desperate game of catch-up. Red Bull knew exactly what they were doing. They didn't just lose a designer, they sent him to their rival with his hands tied behind his back for the most critical year of the decade. Adding insult to injury is the bizarre situation surrounding Dan Fallows. Remember, Fallows was the man Stroll originally poached from Red Bull to lead the technical team. He was supposed to be the bridge until Newey arrived, but Fallows was removed from his technical director role in late 2024 after the team's performance nosedived. Here is the twist that has everyone talking. Fallows has now resurfaced back within the Red Bull family, taking a role at the Racing Bulls team for 2026. This is a psychological blow. the man who oversaw the initial flawed concept of the Aston Martin AMR 26, has returned to the Red Bull fold, effectively taking all his knowledge of Aston's struggles with him. Meanwhile, Aston Martin is left with the mess he left behind. It creates a massive staffing void in the middle management layer at Silverstone. You have Adrian Newey at the top, but the lieutenants who actually execute the work are either new, confused, or, in Fallows' case, gone back to the enemy? It is a staffing revolving door that has left the engineering department completely destabilized. If you are stunned by how brutal the business side of Formula One can be, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. We track every power move in the paddock, so you don't have to. Now, let's look at why the engine situation is making this even worse. The staffing blockade didn't just hurt the aerodynamics, it crippled the Honda partnership. 2026 is the year Aston Martin officially becomes the Honda Works team, leaving Mercedes power behind. This should have been a massive advantage, but integrating a new power unit requires constant daily collaboration between the chassis engineers and the engine manufacturers in Japan. Because key technical staff like Enrico Cardile were also delayed by legal battles, Ferrari blocked Cardile until mid-2025, there was no one to steer the ship. Honda engineers reportedly arrived at Silverstone asking for chassis specifications that simply didn't exist yet. The result is a compromised package. The cooling requirements for the new Honda hybrid system don't match the side pod design, which is causing the overheating issues we are seeing in Bahrain testing. Red Bull, on the other hand, has been working seamlessly with their own Ford powertrain division on the same campus for 3 years. The contrast in preparation is humiliating. Aston Martin has all the ingredients, but because the chefs arrived late, the meal is burnt. We also need to talk about the transfers that didn't happen. Planet EF1 notes that leaked reports from earlier this year suggested that Aston Martin tried to raid Red Bull for even more staff, specifically targeting race engineers and trackside operations people. The race even reported they were potentially targeting Max Verstappen's engineer, Gianpiero Lambiase. This aggressive recruiting strategy backfired spectacularly. Red Bull didn't just say no, they locked down their remaining staff with new, watertight contracts. This failed raid created an atmosphere of paranoia and hostility. Instead of focusing on the car, Aston Martin's management spent the winter embroiled in legal threats and contract disputes. It distracted the team at the worst possible moment. While McLaren and Ferrari were refining their active aero systems, Aston Martin was busy reading the fine print on non-compete clauses. It proves that you can write a blank check, but you cannot buy loyalty or time. The legal department at Red Bull might actually be their MVP for the 2026 preseason. No one is feeling the pain of this failure more than Fernando Alonso. He is 44 years old. He signed a contract extension specifically for this 2026 regulation change. He was sold the dream that Newey and Honda would give him one last shot at a third world championship. Watching him in the Bahrain paddock this week was heartbreaking. He knows, better than anyone, that a 4-second deficit cannot be closed in a few months. Alonso doesn't have time for a transition year. He needed the car to be ready now. Rumors are already swirling that 2026 will likely be his final season, especially given the performance struggles, though Alonso has previously hinted he might not want to end his career on a low. He didn't sign up to fight solely for Q2 appearances. The tension between Alonso and the team management is palpable. He trusted Stroll's timeline, but Red Bull's delay tactics have effectively wasted perhaps the final year of his legendary career. Ultimately, this disaster falls on the shoulders of Lawrence Stroll. He has invested hundreds of millions into the new factory, the wind tunnel, and the salaries of these superstars. But his managed-by-checkbook strategy has hit a wall. He assumed that hiring the best names would automatically result in the best car. He underestimated the complexity of building a team culture. Unlike the stability seen at Mercedes, Red Bull has faced its own internal crisis with key departures, yet their gardening leave strategy remained effective. While Mercedes retained key leaders, Red Bull's decade-long core team has dismantled with the exits of Horner, Newey, and Wheatley. Aston Martin is a collection of mercenaries who barely know each other's names yet. The pressure on Andy Cowell, the new team principal, and Mike Crack in his trackside role is immense. Stroll is not a patient man. If this 2026 season starts as badly as testing suggests, we could see another massive purge of staff, which would only reset the cycle of failure. The super team experiment is currently looking like a cautionary tale about how not to build a Formula One team. Finally, we have to consider the Max Verstappen angle. For months, the media speculated that Max would follow Newey to Aston Martin for 2026 or 2027. He was supposedly the final piece of the puzzle. Looking at the timesheets in Bahrain, Max must be breathing a sigh of relief. If he had signed a pre-contract with Aston Martin, he would be walking into a burning building. Instead, by staying put or keeping his options open, he has avoided anchoring his prime years to a project that isn't ready. This failure likely kills any chance of Verstappen ever driving for Aston Martin. It also validates his loyalty to the Red Bull system, even without Newey there. It turns out that the Red Bull machine was always bigger than just one designer, and their ability to cripple a rival's staffing structure proves they are still the sharpest operators in the paddock. So what does this mean for the 2026 season? It means Aston Martin is likely out of the championship fight before it even begins. In Formula One, time is the only resource you cannot buy. By the time Adrian Newey and his team fully understand the issues with the AMR26 and design a solution, the season will be halfway done, and rivals like McLaren and Ferrari will have moved the goalposts even further. This situation also sets a dangerous precedent for the future of the sport. It shows that teams can weaponize employment law to effectively sabotage their competitors. We might see the FIA step in to regulate gardening leave more strictly, because having the sport's top talent sitting on the sidelines for years is bad for the show. For Aston Martin, the implications are existential. If they fail this year, after all the hype and money, the entire project could collapse. Lawrence Stroll built this team to win, not to be an expensive midfield runner. If the results don't come, the repercussions will be felt from the boardroom to the pit lane, and the dream of a British super team might end in a fire sale. The 2026 season promised a new order, but right now, it looks like the old guard has outsmarted the new money. We will know the full truth when the lights go out in Melbourne. If you want to follow this developing story and see if Newey can work a miracle, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you at the first race.